I'm Dan Drake. This is Front Up on Visitor Network TV, and this morning we have with us David Goodman, who is a columnist for the INM on two fronts. You do the Here and There column, and you also do the fishing column, right?
Well, not exactly. I used to do Here and There. It's now been changed over to Goodman's Gam, and Marianne writes Here and There.
I'm sorry. You're absolutely right. I got that wrong. Okay. But anyway, the fishing. Let's talk about fishing for just a minute, because this word is that the fishing is really good right now. Is that true?
It's been very good. Right now it's a little slow off the beach, but it's, I mean, there's still fish, obviously, but off the boats it's been all the bluefish that you want. There's some good bass fishing, and the boniters.
Isn't this about the time when they often go off for 2 or 3 weeks and then come back?
Well, yeah, they do spawn sort of at this time of year. The bluefish do, and the bass. The water's a little warm for them, so they tend to be in deeper water. They'll be out offshore in sort of federal waters. A lot of them. The bonita, though, this is their time of year. They come in usually, last week in July, and then they're in through August, and then once the false albacore come in, then I don't know if they chase the bonita, but usually the bonita sort of disappear once the false albacore are here.
So you would suggest that anybody who is into fishing get out there?
Yeah,
especially in a boat if they can.
If they can, but there are fish off the beach. It's just a little tougher right now, and also one of the better places to fish off the beach is out by Great Point, but it's closed before you get to the Galls, so you can't get it unless you want to drive and then walk a mile or so. You're not going to.
Smith Point's still closed too, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to other things. Okay. Obviously, a very big issue right now, because it's before the Conservation Commission, is the Sconset Beach preservation issue, and I think you haven't made any bones about the fact that you don't like the project, but why don't we talk about that a little bit, and what do you think is...
Well, they haven't, I guess the Concom hasn't made a decision yet. Right. They had a meeting, I think it was yesterday or the day before, and they spent 4 hours and still haven't come to a conclusion, but the problem I have with the whole thing is just that, once you put hard armoring in anywhere, everything on either side of it gets eaten away.
Scoured.
Yeah, and the fact is, it's kind of like I got mine by getting that hard armoring in, but the people on either side are going to lose some beachfront probably, and it could be we could lose Codfish Park, for example. I can't tell you for sure it's going to happen, but
we also could lose, and they almost have lost Codfish Park before without the...
Well, that's true, and also, to be honest, Codfish Park, I think it was about 150 years ago, didn't exist. It accreted. Right. But some of that accretion was from the cliffs there, losing sand and being washed down the shore.
Right.
One of the things that bothers me about it is that, and one thing that people bring up is that, well, if the road goes away, or if the cliff goes away and the road's gone, then we'd have to pay to get a new road in there and utilities and whatever. The problem I have with the Sconset Beach people is that the attitude is, well, we could give you the land behind our houses there on the other side, and or room to put in utilities, but we don't want that. We want this. And I would think that they say they need those things, but they want it their way, and maybe you just don't always get your way, even if you have, lots of money.
This plan compared to the one of about 3 years ago, where they were going to take the top off a shoal offshore and bring it and actually build out the beach, nourish the beach, as the expression.
Re-nourish, they used to say.
Well, re-nourish, but in this case it would be nourished, because it hasn't been really done before. How, in your mind, is either one better or worse than the other?
Well, they both have their bad points, and the re-nourishing, the problem was they were going to scoop up sand and ruin some good fishing areas. To be honest, my theory is that what they need to really do is find a way to put some artificial reefs, whether it be, I know off of New York, for example, they dumped a lot of subway trains out there, or if you can get the Navy or some company that gets rid of ships or whatever, sink a couple of ships, maybe a quarter, half a mile off the beach, it would do two things. It would be great for the fishing, but it would also slow down the wave impact as it comes out to sea. And so what would happen is, I'm not saying it would cure the whole thing, but it would certainly help. And I can't see how anybody could be against that. I think
there was that fellow, I think his name was Joe Farrell, who talked about doing that off Matticat a number of years ago, and that seems to have disappeared.
But he was doing that with his own money, as I recall, and I think it was also the idea that what he was doing was going to, eventually he was going to use it to make money. I mean, it would be a commercial thing once he sort of perfected this system that he wanted to do. So, those things come and go.
Right.
One of the things, and really this is one of the biggest things that bothers me about this whole thing, is that, the point has been made by the Sconset Beach people that they're going to pay for what's going on now. But by the town signing an agreement with them, by the Board of Selectmen signing an agreement, at some point it could happen that they decide not to pay anymore, and then we're stuck. And they talk about, we're going to put money in an escrow fund to remove it if need be. Well, if you had to remove all those rocks and things, the damage
move
was
them offshore and put them that barrier you were talking about.
Yeah, but it would be devastating to the beach to try and do that. I just think it's I understand and I sympathize with the people that are possibly losing their houses. A lot of them have memories. Maybe they may have been in their family for generations. But the fact is, when you have a house on the ocean, it may not be there tomorrow or next year or for your grandchildren. And that's just the way it is.
Have you been out to the end of the Matticat Road recently? Seen what's happened there in the last couple of years?
Oh yeah, I worked on a house out there a few years ago. It was kind of funny. It was the third house in. And they were very nice people.
And it's still there, actually.
It is. Yeah. And they said, I tiled a shower for them, and they said, don't use anything expensive. It may not be here, But as it turns out, they actually lifted the house up a little bit, and I don't know if it's going to survive, but I hope
they just re-shingled it.
Yeah,
just in the last few weeks.
It's a tiny little house, but it's a cool little place. Yeah. It's one of the most efficient small houses I've ever been in. Everything has a good space, and it's beautiful. I'd hate to lose a house no matter where it was.
The same issue is going to come up out there in terms of Ames Avenue, I think, within a few years.
Yeah, but they don't have the money that the people in Wisconsin do.
I'm talking about Ames Avenue as the access to Smith's Point, and what's going to happen if Ames Avenue is cut off. Because it's not that far away now.
History always repeats itself, and I have to tell you, the Inky puts out this book about I can't think what the name is, Argument Settlers, and it basically has history from the beginning of the island when people settled all the way through, and I always love reading that thing. I haven't read it for a couple of years now, but I used to keep it in the bathroom and read a chapter at a time, and or the library, I should say. And back in the 1880s or something, they had a thing where they had built a bridge. It was obviously that bridge across over by Millie's or whatever, and or what was Millie's, and it was, I think, $600, which at the time was a lot of money.
Right.
Washed away a week later. So, I hope people learn from those kind of things. It just doesn't always work. This island is continually shifting. There are a lot of places on the island that used to be, good example, over by Tom Nevers, there's a cliff there. It's got a lot of sand built up in front of it. But at one time, I assume it was just
beachfront,
a cliff.
Yeah, oceanfront right there. Yeah. What else is on your mind?
Well, traffic's pretty rotten.
It's terrible.
I actually, in my column a few weeks ago, said I'm not going to write about it anymore, but I guess I can talk about it. I'm just amazed at the stuff I see and the bad attitudes I see from people. I don't think a day goes by when I don't almost either hit or get hit by somebody stop signs mean nothing these days, and I guess they just put one up at Union Street and Washington or whatever. Or so
where by Washington Street Extension?
Yeah,
did they do that? Because it wasn't there a couple days ago.
I just got an email from somebody. I haven't gone to look at it yet, but it's sort of. I have a feeling it's going to be one of those really bad stop signs. We seem to have a history of putting up bad stop signs. We had the one on Old South Road, which was just
terrible,
horrible. And then I'm not wild about the one on Surfside Road, but I realize it seems to be helping. And so
Surfside and Fairgrounds.
Yeah. And then the other one was the one down there by the. Well, it's not the A&P now. It's the Stop and Shop. They put that one up for 1 year in the summer, and then it doesn't seem to have come back. So that's good.
Actually, I was driving from Francis Street onto Washington Street there the other day, and some guy slowed down. He didn't have his blinker on. He slowed down, and then all of a sudden he accelerated right in front of me to go straight. So I'm not sure I disagree with that stop sign, but we'll see how it plays out.
Well, one of the problems, too, is if somebody, and this is something people don't think about, but if somebody stops and you think, okay, it's okay to go, and you go and they hit you, it's your fault.
That's right.
You know, there's no such thing as you waved me through kind of thing. There's no law about that.
That's right. The other one they were talking about putting in was on Orange Street, where Union Street, I guess, goes off there or comes into it at that intersection, to keep people, because the visibility is so poor.
Well, but I think that goes to visibility, and that's one thing that I did write about recently, and I see it all the time. There are a lot of places here that are so, they need to be trimmed back, and it's kind of tough because some of this is not within the purview of the DPW. You know, it's far enough up on the people's lawn or whatever that I think they're only allowed to cut back a certain distance from the road or whatever. And the one I mentioned was Duke's Road, because I lived there for several years. And when you come out Duke's Road and you want to go make a right turn, well, that's usually a sort of curve to go to the right. You can see people coming from the left on the bike path or cars, but you can't see bikes a lot of the time coming from the right because there's so much foliage on this guy's lawn or this house right there. And you have to sort of creep out. And I just came from there this morning because I worked on a house there recently. And sure enough, it didn't look like anyone was coming, but that place between where the road curves in and all that foliage is, there was somebody. He was going fast. I mean, if I just pulled out, I'd have hit the guy.
I actually had that happen coming out of Bartlett Road onto Hummock Pond Road, the new bike path there, and the vegetation is so thick that.
And you know, Tom David has maintained, for years has complained, and he should. I mean, his wife rides a bike a lot, and there are places on the Palpas bike path where there are branches that hit people as they would go through there. It's just, and that's definitely the town's problem. Yeah. One other thing I was going to say that I noticed, and I haven't heard anything about this, and I find it's kind of interesting, that new parking lot down there. I
was going to ask you about
on Washington Street. I have yet to go by when it was full, or even close to full, but it is pretty expensive.
I have gone by a couple of times when it was
really.
It appeared quite full, let's put it that way. But generally, I agree that it's been...
Yeah. Well, I think most people that could afford to park there, because I certainly couldn't. I think it's $18 for the day if you park there or something, most of those people aren't going to park there and walk. You know, people that have that kind of money are not going to, generally, and the real estate agents aren't going to do it because they just collect tickets and then they write it off as a business expense.
And the other one is the valet service they have from the town building down to the jetties. I have no idea how that's doing, except that the people came back to do it a second year.
And they're doing it at Lola out by the Rotary, too.
Where are they parking those cars?
I have no idea. I have no idea. It might be the Stop and Shop.
Well, I think I know why they're doing that, because somebody complained about people parking in their office space, which is right.
The I&M did, because and they had a right to, because and they're not the only ones. Also, the three the water closet, the towel room, and
And
Like the,
Medawar Electronics.
Well, he also did, and also the light
shop.
fixture,
Yeah.
light shop. And I can see why they complain, because it's, I go to the tile room all the time to pick stuff up, and if you can't get in there, you can't do your job. It's a tough situation, and I don't know what they're going to do about it. I guess the valet parking is the only thing they can do. I don't know if Lola is going to stay open all the way through the winter. So
it'll be interesting to see, but
Yeah.
they shouldn't have the same problem then.
No.
Not to the degree they're having it now.
No.
Well, David, it's great to have you here. Thank you very much for being with us today, and we'll talk again.
Okay.
Good.
Thanks.
Thanks.